It is.
It is not.
You're saying no wrong.
Shannon.
What?
No.
It is.
You're such a brat.
Hi.
Man.
So tonight, what?
You didn't even tell me that you were starting videoing me. You
What?
like to video with me arguing with you, don't you?
No, I hate it.
Whatever.
No, I don't. We never argue. That's not how this works. I'm not going to post a video in the middle of the night on the East Coast that starts with us arguing. That'd be crazy.
Whatever.
That'd be insane. Sort of like these scores. Look at the scores on the board. Look at all the colors I used. Every column's a different color. Winners, losers, goaltenders, and scoring. All right, guys, there you go. Good night. No. So I'll work my way through top to bottom. The funny thing is, I have to show this. I did do timestamps for the video earlier. I just didn't put them in the video description because I was busy going out. I'd also like to call attention to the fact that there's a shelf right there. There was a Stamkos on there earlier. It's gone. It's in the mail. On Twitter, I retweeted out the actual receipt of me shipping it out to Calgary. So before this becomes a thing, it's been mailed. So there you go. Now it doesn't have to be a thing. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, awesome, great, perfect, good, excellent. All right, New Jersey and Columbus, let's get at her. Pitter patter, let's get at her. So New Jersey puts a loss on Columbus. Corey Schneider, 41 saves. Fantastic night for Corey Schneider. I always track him closely. Corey Schneider is still one of my favorite goaltenders. It doesn't matter if he's not the Canucks goalie. He's the Devils goalie, and he's fantastic. And whenever I hear Devils fans talk about, maybe we should just trade him, I think they're insane. Because Vancouver was insane for trading him, and that's coming from a huge Bo Horvat fan. The scoring portion of this is just interesting notes. This isn't necessarily the start of the game. Nason, goal and an assist. Nason's had the best year so far of his career. And that's not saying much, and it's saying a lot. Up until now, his career had kind of been stops and starts. A lot of injury problems, slow development. Didn't look like that offense was there. If his offense starts to pick up, New Jersey's even more dangerous. If he becomes what he was projected to be a few years back, Jersey's even more dangerous than they are right now. And they look pretty good right now. They made Columbus look kind of, well, Corey Schneider definitely helped by saving 41 of 42 shots. And I'm not a stranger to Corey Schneider having big games. Now, in other news, Tampa Bay. So, Vasilevsky with 29 saves on 31 shots. 6 goals slapped against the Islanders. This is just ugly all around for the Islanders. So, in their next game, they can build on it. They only had 2 shots in the first period. 2. And that's really an indicator of the fact that the Islanders were either gassed or just not ready to play. So either they were gassed from the night before in Florida, or they just weren't ready to play tonight. Vasilevsky saves 29, so they did get 31 shots eventually. They may put 29 more shots on the net in the last 2 periods, but the game was already done at that point. Yanni Gourde with 2 goals for Tampa. Tampa fans claiming that Gourde doesn't get talked about enough, so here I am talking about Yanni Gourde. Good game for him. And in a year that's full of young guys doing some really fantastic things, Gourde is trying to force his way into that conversation. For Tampa, dominant performance. They continue to look really, really good. They had that dip. Remember, I said about a month ago, Tampa's going to have that dip. And they had it. And now they're back at it. So, we're good. Right? We're good. The Rangers in Pittsburgh. As cats fight around me. The Rangers in Pittsburgh. New York wins this one 4-3. The Shadow's fur's all puffed out because he didn't realize that Pixel was waiting to attack him. Normally I'd stop, but not right now. Pavelec makes 41 saves. Booney Evans gets a goal. And he's on the board because A, he had a goal, and B, I like seeing Booney Evans. He needs to be on the same team with all the other fun names in the NHL right now. And there's some really good fun names in the NHL right now. For the Rangers, it's a big win. For Pittsburgh, it's a setback, certainly. The interesting thing to me is Pavelec with 41 saves. Now, we've watched Lundqvist getting used a lot. And we've talked a lot about Lundqvist getting older. Well, if Pavelec is able to come up with these kinds of performances on a regular basis, maybe we could split starts between him and Lundqvist, and maybe we don't have to worry about Lundqvist being tired. Maybe if the Rangers can eke their way into the playoffs, maybe, just maybe, they can do something in the playoffs because Lundqvist will be fresh. Hey, it's not too early to think about it, and I think about it because it's kind of my jam right here. The Blues in Montreal. So I had some concern with this one because Montreal's been playing, I'm not going to say lesser lights too much here, but the back-to-back games against Detroit, part of the problem is that Detroit was so abysmal. Really, Montreal hasn't had a test in their last 3 games, and St. Louis came in and beat them. Now, it was a close game. Jake Allen makes 22 saves. It's not going to help his save percentage, but it doesn't matter. They win the game. Braden Shen wins the game, actually, with his hat trick. So Braden Shen is off to, I would say, the best start of his career, but honestly, that understates what's happening here. He is putting on a clinic. And, I know Philly fans are a little salty over it, and I don't blame them. If Braden Shen was still in Philly, if you undo that trade, Philly's probably having quite a different season. Or are they? Because maybe he has great chemistry with the St. Louis that he didn't have in Philly. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right combination. Sometimes that's all it is. For Montreal, Carey Price allows 4, but again, he's had a great run going. This is more of a hiccup than anything else. I still think Montreal's on an upswing. This is just a hiccup, and I think they'll continue. They do still have that rather friendly schedule going for them in December. So I don't perceive that this is the start of Montreal falling again. I think they're right about where I think they're meant to be. I think they're around a 500 team, maybe a little better than a 500 team, and they'll be in the mix from here on, I think, for the playoffs. Detroit and Winnipeg. 5 goals for Detroit. Jimmy Howard with 25 saves, so only 26 shots for Winnipeg. Gustav Nyquist, who I've been on. I've looked at his stats and I've said this guy hasn't lived up to what he was supposed to be, which isn't fair because when you're trying to replace Datsuk and Zetterberg, and Zetterberg's still on the team, it can be tough. So he puts up 3 points tonight, 2 goals and an assist. Very good showing for him. I'm a fan of that kind of performance. And Winnipeg only getting 26 shots means Detroit played a very good game defensively, which says a lot for them after the last couple of games. It would have been easy for Detroit to just mail it in. I can't imagine allowing 16 goals in 2 games against a team and then trying to get up for that next game. It has to be tough. But they played for pride and they played well. So there you go. Detroit with the win. For Winnipeg, much like with Montreal, you have to take this loss and go, okay, we lost a big game for us. We lost a game we needed to win, but it's done, and move on to the next game. Not let it turn into a streak the other way. Nashville and Dallas. This is why Dallas makes me nervous. The funny part is, part of what made me nervous going into tonight turned out to be a bonus, and yet, yeah, Jamie Alexiak gets a Gordie Howe hat trick. Goal, assist, and a fight. And that's the Jamie Alexiak he was supposed to be when he was drafted. He was supposed to be a hard-nosed defenseman who had some offensive acumen, and he's never really lived up to it. He's been that number 7 guy that I've always been nervous when he's in the lineup. And when Honka drew out and he drew in, I was like, oh no, what are you doing? But the idea being they wanted a more physical defenseman against Nashville. Didn't quite work out. They win 5-2. Nashville wins 5-2. Not on Alexiak. This is not a result that would have changed if you have Honka in the lineup instead. Saros gets the win, and there it is. 43 saves. I said he was due. Hell of a night to get that performance. And Aberg with a goal for Nashville. I threw that on the board because Pontus Aberg has been a player I've followed since he was drafted, and I think he has a lot of offensive upside. If he's played with the right on the right line, I think he's got that potential. And for Saros, he has 43 saves on 45 shots against Dallas. Of course he does. So Nashville loses to Vancouver, and then to make up for it, they beat Boston and Dallas. Awesome. So Nashville gave me one and then took the other two. I'm sure that was their intention the whole time, right? But for Nashville, this is another game that shows that, in my eyes, they are still the best team in the league. They are intimidatingly good. Nashville, Tampa. Those are the powers of the league right now as far as I'm concerned. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that up, because doing that over 82 games is exhausting. So can they keep it up? We'll see. However, there were other games to be had, and Buffalo goes in and beats Colorado. Now, if you're the Avs, you really needed this game. Nashville wins, St. Louis wins, but Winnipeg and Dallas lose. So if you're Colorado, you can win. You can start putting some heat on Dallas at least, and heat on Chicago, who didn't play tonight. And then another team in their division that lost tonight. You can really start putting yourself into that conversation. Instead, they lose at home against Buffalo. And that's tough. It's like every time Colorado is close to being in that conversation, they take themselves out of it again. It is a stretch that Colorado's going to be able to stay in that conversation all year. But just the fact that here we are, it's December 5th, and their games still seem important, they've taken a large step beyond where they were last year at this time. Robin Lehner, 35 saves for Buffalo. Give full credit to Lehner. And Lehner's another one of those goaltenders that I think is dramatically underrated. If calls are coming into Buffalo on Robin Lehner, you listen to them because you've got a very in need of a rebuild style team, but you make sure you get a king's ransom for him because Lehner's a good goaltender. He's not a run-of-the-mill guy, and I think on the right team, Lehner would put up the kind of stats that Hellebuck was putting up in Winnipeg and can still put up, the kind of stats that Vasilevsky's putting up in Tampa. I still see that in Lehner. I saw it in Ottawa. I couldn't understand why Ottawa got rid of him and kept Craig Anderson. I know there's an emotional attachment to Anderson. I know he's a great guy. I know there's this feeling with Lehner that he's kind of a prick. I get it. He's got that air about him that he's kind of a prick. He had that, he was openly upset with the coach last year. The thing is, whether Lehner's a prick or not, he's a good goaltender. And there are plenty of goaltenders that have character foibles, personality issues, sort of kind of oddballs. Some of them are weird, some of them are superstitious, and some of them are just jerks. There have been plenty of goaltenders that for those of you who are 25 and younger, would look and go, this guy's got great stats, why didn't he make the Hall of Fame? And I can tell you, he probably was a jerk. There are a couple of them I can think of right off the top of my head that I go, yeah, he was a jerk. And it's more pronounced now because we've got social media, because we've got 24/7 access to athletes and sports. And if the guys from the 90s who were like that, and the late 80s who were like that, were exposed to that now, people would be stunned by, I think, some of the things they would say to them, some of the ways they'd react. One of them's a GM in Philly, who I really think, under the current scrutiny goaltenders get, I think he would have gone off on the media a few times. Absolutely. And rightfully so. It's the one position where we do this. We look every single night at what they do, and players don't, the skaters don't really go through this so much, unless you're an Austin Matthews in Toronto, McDavid in Edmonton, one of the big star players in a really big hockey mecca. You go through that micromanagement. Goalies shouldn't, but they do. It's part of the game. Lehner's not a bad goaltender. Interestingly here, Benoit Pouliot with a goal and an assist, and I'll say interestingly because if you guys are already cheating looking down the board, I'm very depressed right now. But it was a big night for chickens. We'll just put it that way. Benoit Pouliot, years ago, when he played for Boston, I just dubbed him Chicken, because poulet is chicken in French. So to me, Pouliot is just, I'll just call him Chicken. And, every time he scored, he yelled, "Yay, chicken!" And it kind of stuck in my brain. So when I see that, and then something happened to Vancouver tonight, and then I saw, it's just great. What a great night. All right, Vegas and Anaheim. Let's get to it, shall we? Stop letting me just divert myself off track like that. Vegas wins in a shootout. Key here is Anaheim allows 40 shots again. So Gibson plays fantastic, and he isn't on the board because he's not the winning goalie. I only put the winning goalies up here. 26 saves for Subban. So Subban's stats since he came back have come back to earth. He's not putting up those heady stats that I don't think any of us had expected him to. But Subban is good enough. Subban is solid enough that a team like Vegas that can score a lot of goals, he's still getting the wins. They get the win in the shootout. Very emotional reaction by Subban to winning in the shootout. That was his first shootout. I think with every win Subban gets, I think in the back of his mind he's probably thinking, I've just proven Boston wrong again. They abandoned me, and here I am putting up stats and wins for Vegas, a team that wasn't supposed to win. So again, it's that syndrome that you've got in Vegas of A, we're playing for our city, and B, we're the guys nobody else wanted. We're going to prove those teams wrong. And it works. And I believe they're now 11-2 at home. So that home record is intimidating, and it's keeping them in the running for first place in their division. Eric Howla with a goal and 2 assists. When he was signed to an extension by Vegas, some eyebrows were raised, including my own. But he's proven to be very good. Despite, having injury issues during the season, he's been very, very good for them. For Anaheim, it's another tough loss. Their shootout and overtime record is bad. It's bad, and it could be costing them a playoff spot. Absolutely could be costing them a playoff spot. Again, you can't be getting single points when other people are getting 2 points because you're just putting yourself further and further behind the 8 ball. And Anaheim's there. It kind of wastes a good game for some guys. But, again, shootouts are so tough. You lose in a shootout, and it's a skills competition. It's not really the game. But they did have that power play in overtime, and they're Anaheim. It's just not their year in overtime. All right, Vancouver and Carolina. So I've been good. I've been a good boy. I've waited. This is near the end of the video. Jacob Markstrom coming into tonight. No shutouts for 130 games in his career. He's 3 short of Pokey Reddick's record. Pokey Reddick's record of the most games ever without a shutout to start your career. This is a crazy total for Markstrom. Is he ever going to get a shutout? He got it. And Derek Pouliot with a goal and 2 assists. If you haven't seen the goal, look it up. Because Derek Pouliot's goal tonight was fantastic. His 2 assists tonight were pretty good too. One of them is the second assist. But Pouliot played the best game of his life tonight. And it's funny because at a time when Pittsburgh's defense has been less than stellar, I look at Derek Pouliot and I think, wow, if he'd stayed in Pittsburgh this year, if they hadn't traded him, how might things have been different? Pouliot's been very good for Vancouver. He was iffy at the start of the year. He had some bad games at the start of the year. But at this point, he's come through that. He's playing more minutes. He's playing top 4 minutes. And he's actually looking really good. Between Pouliot looking fantastic, Stetcher has looked great. Stetcher is fearless. The blue line for the Canucks that got this shutout and helped Markstrom to that 30-save shutout, it's an impressive game. For Carolina, where they wasted this was they outshot the Canucks 12-3 in the first, and Markstrom was on his game, and they just couldn't take advantage. After that first period, the Canucks came out and they played better in the second and the third, and they took the game. Basically, Carolina, I think, personally lost the game in the first period. And then second and the third period, while I was watching it, I just didn't see it. I saw a couple good plays by Teravainen. I saw some decent plays from Pesce. I just didn't see... At no point during this game did I feel like Carolina was going to win it. At no point was I concerned that Carolina was going to come back and win it. So that says something about Carolina's game right now. Very good game for Vancouver. Tough game for Carolina. Darling, I can't fault Darling on any of the 3 goals, and yet it's not great for his save percentage, which is the number that a lot of people use. Not his fault tonight, though. Absolutely not, because the team didn't score. If your team doesn't score, it doesn't matter what the goalie does. In my eyes. I know other people see it that way, but I don't. All right. Last game of the night was LA and Minnesota. So Minnesota knew that Dallas had lost, Winnipeg lost. All they had to do was beat LA. Saying all I got to do is beat LA? Easier said than done. Jonathan Quick only has to make 19 saves. Minnesota only manages 21 shots. Quick didn't have to save the night tonight. If this had been Kemper, it's still a win. Gaborik with 2 goals. Gaborik's up here because 2 goals for Marian Gaborik. He was on the injured list forever. I think we all, 90% of hockey fans felt that Gaborik was at the end, and he's done. Since he came back from that injury, though, he's actually started to look like the old Gaborik. He's part of the reason that the Kings have been putting up these wins and moving their way up the standings. The Kings are, right now, again, looking like contenders. So they went through that period of about 5 games where they looked iffy to bad, depending on who you talk to. And now they're back in the race. They're back in the running. For Minnesota, it's another setback. So again, there are a few teams that I look at, and every time they start looking like they're turning it around, they turn it the wrong way. Whether it's Chicago, Edmonton's in that position, Minnesota, Carolina. There's that one up, one down, and you don't win that way. 500 record doesn't get you anything. You won't make the playoffs that way, because certain teams are still putting up the victories. I mean, if we take a look here, in terms of upsets, so if we look at teams that won that were coming in as underdogs, you could qualify New Jersey as an upset, Rangers, Detroit, Buffalo, and that's probably it. And in terms of the teams they beat, Columbus, well, New Jersey's right up there with Columbus. So saying that that's an upset is a minor upset, because New Jersey's been close. It's just Columbus has been seen as the team that everybody feels is more of the contender in that division, so Jersey's kind of casting some doubt on that. Pittsburgh, well, Pittsburgh's had problems, and they went on this nice little 4-game winning streak, and now that's done, and you have to start wondering again about certain parts of their game. Winnipeg, well, they're near the top of the NHL. Colorado, not in a playoff spot, so in terms of upsets, that's minor as well. In terms of contenders that won tonight, Tampa, St. Louis, Nashville, Vegas is inserting themselves in that picture, and LA is inserting themselves in that picture. And so is Jersey. So here's your little pluses. Teams that are definitely making the argument, hey, we're contenders, we're for real. Vegas, even if we go back to old rules, no shutouts, that's a tie, that's important. Not losing is important. Get a point. Just get a point. And Vegas is very, very good in the shootout and in overtime. This was their second game in a shootout. They're 1-1 in the shootout, and they're 5-0. I believe they're 5-0 in overtime. I remember hearing or reading somewhere they had 5 wins in overtime. So when it goes to extra time, Vegas is very good at getting the points. First shootout win tonight, and Subban looked good in that shootout. Let's see him in another one, because he saved 3 out of 3 tonight. So there you go. There's the wrap up. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And let me know which game surprised you the most. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.